Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Thursday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. Do you know it? It's 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, it didn't take me long to find a story topic that I wanted to talk about this morning. There's actually like three parts to this video, actually more than that, but it has to do with current events, something that just happened yesterday. The sentencing of a person involved, a 72-year-old man. The sentencing of a 72-year-old man involved in the passing away of actor Michael Williams from The Wire. And the pictures I saw, I went through several different articles on this, and I saw the New York Post article, and they had actual pictures of the person that was sentenced yesterday and his group of friends and what was going on in that picture. And it reminded me of what I saw and what I did and things I've experienced through 2.5 decades of using myself. And it made me think about Donald Trump. If there's any of you that think that his promise of capital punishment for people apprehended like this, some of the things I'm going to share with you might make you think twice. I'm not going to get a big lecture about Donald Trump and everything, but it reminded me of real situations, just hundreds of them really, that I saw and participated in, that I'm going to share with you in a second. But first of all, before I get into this heavy stuff, let me share, I wanted to say this, and I might as well take this time. YouTube has a policy that I have to be very careful what I put in the title of my video and for the first 30 seconds if I'm going to be monetized for advertising. That's just one of those things. So I'm going to take this little first 30 seconds. I probably already used it up, but yesterday I read some of your comments, and there's one or two people that I'm losing patience with. I was surprised to see, I have no problem. I love criticism, but there was this one person that commented on the very first video I ever put on YouTube before I even had like a channel. And this guy was critical, and he's been obsessed with me and following me for years. And I thought I was rid of him. It came to a point where he doxed me, and he put my phone number in the comments of all my videos. This is about 2 or 3 years ago. And I have the option of blocking people from my channel, of reporting people, or ghosting them so they can comment, but nobody's going to see anything they comment. They'll see it, but nobody else is going to see anything they comment. They're going to be alone in their timeout room. And I was surprised to see him back on my channel again yesterday. So I dealt with that yesterday. Because I have once you get to that limit that you're starting to dox people, putting phone numbers up, and what I ever did to this guy, it starts to really scare you when, why somebody is so obsessed with me. Which brings me to another comment yesterday. One of the other people that I still allow on the channel, but is along the same lines. I read one of his comments yesterday, and he called me a big liar, just like, he compared me to Donald Trump, and he called me a big liar, just like Donald Trump. And that doesn't bother me, and it's constant comments like this in all my videos. And he brought something up about women, a number that I had used with women I dated, and the fights I've been in. And the first thing I thought was, this guy's lucky. And the reason I thought that is because I thought he must have led a sheltered life. Because the people I've been around, like I talked about how I used to go to bike gang clubs, biker clubs. And if you go to any NA meeting or AA meeting, if you just visit and sit down, which you can do, you'll realize that the stuff I talked about, the numbers I talked about, and the things I'm talking about are nothing out of the ordinary. Actually, the stuff I talked about, the numbers are kind of low. And I thought about too, why I was involved in such. I'm ashamed and embarrassed of a lot of this stuff. I'm not bragging, and why would I make stuff up like that? Anyway, that brings me to, so I allow this one person to stay on this channel for now. I mean, I don't mind criticism, but if sometimes the person I ghosted he shouldn't have been on this channel in the first place after doxing me. And he was just commenting nonsense. I don't know what it was. All right. Enough about that. So I've been reading your comments. Anyway, okay, now I can really talk about this. The overdose death of Michael Williams from The Wire, the HBO's The Wire. He OD'd on fentanyl. and a fentanyl related fluorofentanyl, I think it's called. This stuff wasn't around. I've been clean and sober since October 23rd, 2006. And there was patches being prescribed, and people I knew were abusing that, but there was no powder fentanyl. There was no rainbow fentanyl. There was none of that 16, 17 years ago. And the New York Post article, they apprehended the four people. It was a four-person unit, gang, sales unit, whatever you want to call it, in Williamsburg and in Brooklyn, selling this. And they continued to sell it, which I know dealers do. I saw a picture in the paper about 2 or 3 years ago. I told you guys about this, and it was a crack dealer I knew from 17 or 18 years ago. And he was still getting arrested just a couple of years ago. I saw his picture. He was like 20 years older. He was like a 20-year-old kid back when I was dealing with him, and now he's like 40. He's been arrested dozens of times, and he's still doing this. And I talk about how I realized that a lot of the dealers they're either addicts themselves, addicted to the drugs they're selling, which is something I got involved in, or they're addicted to the money and the sheer power that people will do anything. Daily, people come up to you and just hand you anything and everything, and will do anything for what you have. And the power is amazing. And these dealers get addicted to that. Okay, so this guy that got arrested, he continued to deal. His name is Carlos Macci, M-A-C-C-I. There's two different reports here. He's 71 or 72. I saw articles. I think I'm going to go with 72. He's a 72-year-old man, and he's an addict himself. Now, he was only sentenced to 2.5 years. He was one of the persons in this 4-person unit that were selling drugs on the streets of Williamsburg and Brooklyn. And he's not the person that actually did the hand-to-hand. Cartagena, one of the other members of his crew, was actually seen doing the hand-to-hand. There's so many cameras and videos down in New York City that pretty much everything is videoed these days. So they actually caught these guys dealing directly to Michael Williams. And I was reading up on some of the stuff. Michael Williams admitted his addiction. It actually got to the point, one of the co-creators, David Simon from The Wire, pled for leniency for this 72-year-old dealer that dealt the drugs to his friend, Michael Williams. And also, Michael Williams' nephew, Dominic DuPont, also asked the judge for leniency for this older man who also has addiction issues. And this is this is their job. You're talking about people that have no education, sometimes above 6th, 7th grade. I'm going to tell you some stories, some of the things I saw. An 11-year-old dealing crack in his mother's house, and his mother was a crack addict. His mother was in the house. She was a crack addict. These are some of the things I saw. I saw a woman in her late 60s, early 70s, in a wheelchair, and I went to her condo unit, and I was initially looking for heroin. I couldn't find heroin that day, and she was selling her Dilaudid and she had rolls of money. And these are some of the dealers I've seen. I'm going to tell you about some other things I saw. And you can make up your own mind as far as Donald Trump and this capital punishment for, it sounds good on this, on the surface. Let's get tough. No more being soft on these. They're ruining our country and that kind of thing. But when you actually see the people that you want to sentence to death in their lives and how they got there, and the 70-year-old woman in a wheelchair, the 11-year-old kid. These are things I've seen. And that made me think of that commenter, saying that I lie about everything. And like I said, if you just go to any NA meeting or AA meeting, you'll see that the stuff I'm talking about isn't just commonplace, but a lot of the stuff I'm talking about is on the softer side. It's not the most outrageous stuff that you hear in an NA or AA meeting, which made me think this commenter he's lucky. He's led a sheltered life where he hasn't been involved or felt the need to live the life that I led. All right. New York Post has this one picture, and this almost gave me almost a trigger. It reminded me of the scene I dealt with and I'll have the link down below. It's the actual street scene that was captured on the video with Michael Williams, the hand-to-hand. And this is the scene I dealt every morning. I dealt in that particular scene with dealers just dealing out in the open, just rushing up to you, dealers crowding around you, trying to be the one that sells to me. Let me explain this too. A lot of people probably don't know this if you were involved in cocaine or heroin addiction. There's with dealers, there's either heroin dealers, or with me it was either heroin dealers or crack cocaine dealers. They dealt one or they dealt the other, and there's just a couple reasons for this, and a lot of it has to do with the time. Crack dealers tend to come out, they don't get up. Their working hours, if you want to call it that, really don't start until about 3 p.m. back from everything I remember. And that's when people get out of work and they go to the bar, they start drinking, they get a little buzz on, and they want to get some coke or crack. And those dealers will deal from about 3 p.m. to about 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and that's when they go to bed. The heroin dealers are completely different. The heroin dealers start at about 5 or 6 a.m. And there's a specific reason for this, because I'm gonna tell you something I saw. There's one of the scariest things, most bizarre things I ever saw. It's because people need to get this drug. The addiction, they need this after the first time use, the initial buzz. They need this drug every single day just to function. We're not talking about partying or a high. Once you use heroin like for the first time, or fentanyl the first time, for a couple times, you become physically addicted, and you need it just to feel normal, just to function. Without it, you can't even get out of bed. No, I can't even describe to you the feelings once withdrawal starts to set in. And a lot of times withdrawal starts to set in about 8 hours after the use. So this is just a constant, it's a constant nightmare of having to buy this stuff 3-4 times a day, and then and when you're not buying it, to go find money to buy it. You sink into this nightmare that you can't get out of. And those dealers will deal to the people going into work. The heroin dealers start at about 5 or 6 a.m. and they'll deal till it gets dark, and that's when the crack dealers come out. And that's complete. It wasn't just one or two situations. That's how it all was back when I was involved in this. Let me tell you this too. I remember all my teeth were rotted out. Literally every single tooth in my mouth was broken off the gum line and rotted, black and brown, all of them. And I had to get them all cut out of my gums. I had my my jawbone filed down. Couldn't take any, because I was an opioid addict. I had this done through the methadone clinic. I could just have Novocaine. I could have no painkillers. And that was quite an experience, having all 32 of my teeth cut out of my jaw while I was completely awake. A few shots of Novocaine, and then having my jawbone filed down. Here's the thing. I would go to the two different dealers. I'd go to the heroin dealer in the morning and the crack dealer in the afternoon. And they would blame each other for my tooth loss. Seriously. They'd say, dude, look, your grill's a mess, man. It's that crack that's doing to you. That's what the heroin dealer would tell me. And when I go to the crack dealer, he'd say, dude, it's that heroin. You got to stop using that heroin, man. Use the crack. It's easier. It's better for you. Seriously. I heard this every day. All right. That picture from the New York Post with the dealers on the sidewalk, that was just like a flashback when I saw that. It reminded me of this one particular instance in Waterbury, Connecticut, where I would pull up at about early in the morning, 6, 7, 8 a.m., and I would see other cars pulling up. And this was in a very rundown section of Waterbury, Connecticut. I mean, there was just foundations. There were like three-family tenements all around. And then there was missing and burned out houses. Every other house was like burned or knocked down at the foundation. And the ones that were knocked down at the foundation, they'd filled the foundation up with just garbage. So I mean, it was a garbage-strewn mess. And I would park my car on the side of the road, and I would walk up into the lot where the foundation was all broken off, like into this garbage and through this garbage. And the people in my car, because I was probably one of the most, I needed the drug the most, and I would go and get it. People would give me money to go and get it. I was kind of what you call a middleman, and they would just, I'd just see their eyes. You know, like they said they thought it was the last time they'd ever see me, and I'd go through that lot, and I'd see other people walking through the lot with me. And you know, this reminds me of something out of The Walking Dead, seriously. And I literally saw nurses in nurses' uniforms parking their cars. I saw men in three-piece suits with ties parking their cars. People in construction belts. I mean, every job you could think of. Their work van, their construction trucks, a dump truck, a BMW, pulling up, and those people walking, rushing to be the first in line. When the dealer opened up his back door, there's a three-family tenement, and he would come down to the back door, and he'd unlock all the doors and start dealing. And these people, it reminded me of this. It also reminded me of crack dealers. I remember pulling up in some neighborhoods, and I'd pull up in my car, and the dealers would literally rush the car, like up to 10 dealers, and come to both windows, holding the bags in the window. Come on, man, I got a better deal than this, you know, trying to beat each other's deal. I remember this too, this one specific time. This was back in probably the mid 90s, and it has to do with 50 Cent. I don't want to besmirch his name, but I specifically remember this. I remember these dealers, they were all psyched that day, and I heard his tune, It's Your Birthday or whatever, when he first came out. And these dealers were all bragging that they knew 50 Cent. And they asked me, they said, dude, you remember him? Like, I was supposed to remember him. He says, he was up here, he was one of our boys. He was dealing up here in Waterbury, Connecticut. And I knew he had ties to this area. He was from New York City. And they said, he's the dude with the gold. Remember the dude that looked, I think they said he was short and he had gold teeth. I don't know if they said he was short. To me, well, I'm 6'4", so everybody kind of looks a little short to me, but you know, and they're like, dude, you remember him? I seen you buying it from him. And they were all excited because this famous guy, 50 Cent, they claimed, I don't remember specifically. I remember the guy with the teeth that they were reminding me of, but they swore that 50 Cent was dealing. You know, and this was like a promotion tool for them. Like I said, some of the things I've seen, I have them all listed here. I'm coming up on 17 minutes. I'm already running way too late. I have a list. I have this whole list of things I've seen, and this was just in the first 5 minutes. Like I said, the 11-year-old that was dealing crack, and he took me in the house. I was like, "Are you kidding me? You're dealing?" It's like, you know, and he was a little wise ass man. And he's like, "Yeah, come on, man." He brought me in the house. It was like projects, and his mother was in there. I was like, "Dude, you know." And he's like, "She's cool, man." And he brought me into the kitchen, and there was all little blue plastic bags of crack. His what the dealer had gave him to sell. They were all at the kitchen counter, and his mother was in another room smoking. She's a crack addict, and this is 11 or 12-year-old kid, and he was the dealer in the family. He was paying the rent and for the food there, and And I saw this same situation, although not as extreme, probably at least 2 or 3 other times, with dealers who came from families whose mothers and fathers were addicts. And they actually started become dealers themselves, and they started selling and supplying and helping to pay for the house that their parents were in. Seriously, I swear on the Bible. I have no reason to make stuff like this up. I wanted to talk about so much more, and I will in a coming video. You guys have a great Thursday. Oh, recovery is possible. Have a great Thursday.